was speaking about the theme was the dream of God's vision for humanity. So we may wonder, what is that dream? Well, we know basically, right? But we can remind ourselves, good to remind ourselves. So I'm going to read this from True Father's Word. The beginning is from January 31st, 2003. The second part, I don't remember where it's from. So for talk, this is, what is Chunaguk? It is the world level, from the individual to the family to the nation to the world. What does the family pledge saying at the beginning? As owners of Chunaguk, by becoming owners, we can share equal value. All mankind come to share this benefit equally. Our ultimate purpose is to find and establish a nation that seeks after the will of God and whose citizens all serve God as the center. What would that nation be? It would be the kingdom of the peaceful, ideal world. It would be a nation that resembles the form of a true family with 3 generations living together in harmony, trusting, respecting, and supporting one another, and becoming one in love. In short, it is a nation that humanity has desired throughout the ages, the utopia where God is sovereign. So that's the big goal, right? Can look, very great and maybe very difficult to achieve, maybe. But I went to Korea and I felt a taste of it. I can taste it. So I want to share, so we know this vision. So it's going to be a little bit of testimony. What is the object of our faith? For some people, faith is simply an ideal about reality. It provides values and guidance for life. For others, faith is more personal. It becomes a path towards inner peace, purpose, and well-being. But for many, faith is also a way of understanding the world itself. It asks questions such as, why are we here? What is our responsibility? What kind of world should we build? Throughout history, faith has inspired scientific discovery, social reform, and cultural development. Different people have emphasized different aspects of faith, and we see this even within Christianity. When true parents speak about Chunaguk, all these dimensions come together. This is also a reflection in the Bible throughout the 3 blessings: to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. To be fruitful means to grow as a person. To multiply means to build loving families and relationships. To have dominion means to develop wisdom, knowledge, and responsibility in caring for the world. These are not separate goals. Together they form a path to fulfillment, happiness, and a healthy society. Religion has therefore never been an only private matter. Throughout history, it has inspired people to build a better world. And that's really what I felt is the one big attraction always for me in our faith here. But yet many societies have become disappointed with religion because conflicts, injustice, and oppression has continued. As a result, faith has increasingly been pushed out of the public sphere, as we notice. But removing faith has not removed the problems. The question remains, can humanity become better? Can society improve? Can freedom and justice exist together? People of faith, our answer is yes. That is why we speak about God's world. We believe in a future that can be better than the present. We believe that people can grow, families can flourish, and societies can develop. But this future begins with us. We cannot simply talk about ideals. We must strive to live them. The completion of Chunwon-gung Sanctum marks an important milestone in this providential age. It represents a time when Chunwon-guk is no longer only a vision for the future, but something at the beginning take root in the world. So, at this blessing, yeah, it's great. This brings me to my trip in Korea last April. For any parent seeing a son and daughter to receive the blessing and begin a married life is a joyful moment. For my wife and me, it was much more than that, I would say. I felt like a fulfillment of a journey we began many years ago. When we first chose this path of faith, we had hope, but we did not have certainty. This is the nature of faith. Faith is not simply accepting a set of teaching, it's walking a path and gradually discovering through experiences that those teachings are true. Faith gives us a vision, faith gives us direction, but eventually faith must become our own experience. That's why faith is so deeply personal. As I got to know my son's partner now, and her family and her friends, I realized that despite differences in culture and backgrounds, we share something very important together. We were united by the same hope, same values, the same desire to build a family centered on God. At that moment, the three blessings were no longer just a teaching, they were becoming a living reality. And seeing other people, couples whom I never met before, made that experience even more powerful. I realized that we are all different. We all carry different responsibilities and challenges. We are moving towards the same goal. That goal is Chunilguk. And that's why this opening of this was very significant. But Chunilguk is not merely an abstract idea. It becomes real when people invest their hearts in God's ideal. So one experience especially touched me during my visit when I entered this sacred place here. When I entered Chonawongung Sanctum, I hoped to feel closer to the Heavenly Parents. The building contains many beautiful paintings depicting the life course of true parents and their efforts to establish God's dream. I was not allowed to take pictures of them. I only took one picture. Before they told me I was not allowed to take pictures. That's that picture. Yet what moved me most was not the paintings. At the center of the sanctum there, you see on the picture, was a bright, or you don't see it, but from that ceiling light, there was a bright light where people stood in prayer. I went there and prayed deeply. As I prayed, I felt God's heart. I felt His longing for countless of people throughout history who searched for God and truth. I thought about the saints and the prophets. I thought about those who sacrificed for righteousness. We always hear that we live in a special time, and sometimes we don't realize what that means. I even thought about philosophers, as I like philosophers, such as René Descartes, who sought to understand faith not as a superstition, but something deeply connected to reason and reality. At that moment, I felt Heavenly Parent is not only the Creator. He's the source of truth, wisdom, and principle. God is the greatest philosopher. Creation is not random. There are principles at work, there is a purpose, there is meaning, and there is hope. So when I look back at my experience, what remains strongest in my memory is not a building or a sermon, or even a particular event. It's a feeling of community that I could feel with the people I met around it. The feeling that God's dream is real. Yes, our world still faces many challenges. There are conflicts and division and uncertainties everywhere. But during those days in Korea, I experienced something that reminded me of what the kingdom of heaven can be. I realized that heaven begins whenever people come together with true love and shared purpose. When a family is united around God, God can dwell there. When a community is united around God, God can dwell there. And when our faith becomes real in our lives, we become the builders of Chunilguk. That is our calling, that's our responsibility, and that's our hope. And when practice and experience it becomes part of reality. That's why I felt it was a very special experience for me going there. Let me conclude in prayer.